Hi, friends, and welcome to Talking with Famous People. I'm the host thereof, one host, Eric. And today I pose the provocative question: is a male ballerina a ballerino? My answer, without having Googled it, is yes. Makes sense. So, I got up this morning, wasn't really feeling like doing anything, feeling kind of lazy. But that's where marijuana comes in. Because what I thought is, I often have in the past, is, well, just start live streaming and pull a couple of bowls, and then you'll get into it. It's one of the many advantages of marijuana. So I've had a spite monkey since I did sleep well. I slept quite well. Since around when I typed pleased, he's just a baller. That's possible too. It's another random thing I thought. Like, often the titles of live streams are random things I think before I go to bed. Like, is a male ballerina a ballerino? That was some random thing I thought last night before going to bed. And it said, that'd be a funny title for a live stream. Another random thing I was thinking about before going to bed last night was I was remembering this scene from Seinfeld. And probably the reason I was remembering it is because I've been watching Death Note. But we all have a void email month. That's like Black History Month. It's a yearly tradition. It just varies per person as to which month it is. Anyhow, in this Seinfeld episode, Jerry says to Kramer, "You wouldn't turn me in if I murdered somebody, would you?" And Kramer says, "Yeah, of course I would turn you in." And Jerry says, "But I thought you were my friend." And Kramer says, "Well, I thought I knew you." So it occurred to me as I was lying in bed last night that exchange right there, it's F-I-T-I-F-E-F-I. And that's the order. First it's F-I. You wouldn't turn me in, would you, if I was a murderer? Because I'm your friend. I'm valuable and important to you. And then T.I. goes, "Well, no, you're still subject to fairness." And F-E goes, "But friends aren't supposed to treat each other like that." And then F-I goes, "Well, you aren't supposed to be like that." Again, just a random thing I was thinking in my head last night before we went to sleep. I'm not a fan of Seinfeld either. The association that caused me to think of that Seinfeld scene last night, I'm pretty sure, is watching all this Death Note. And Death Note, if you don't know, is an anime story where a guy finds a book where if he writes somebody's name into it and the time and cause of their death, then they die. So it's obviously got me thinking about murder. Not doing it, but just the topic of murder. But I really like the idea of Mega Bro's so-called quirk code, where he looks at exchanges or discourse or something like that and says, this is an example of meow, meow, and meow. Now, I disagree with some aspects of it because he tried to do a positive negative thing, like any positive, any negative, which I don't buy at all. But yeah, I could do some guitar lesson stuff. But the thing about guitar is, if you're going to learn to play the guitar, you kind of have to make a certain kind of decision first, which is, what do you want to learn to play the guitar for? Do you want to learn to play and sing songs, or do you want to learn to play the guitar like be just a guitarist? Those are very different purposes and very different outcomes as well. I'd be pretty good at teaching people how to play and sing songs because that's my approach. But I would not be very good at teaching people how to play guitar, like to be the guitarist in a band. They typically are a lot more lick oriented than I am. You hear ballet, you rush because ballet is no joke. Right. Well, today we're talking about the name of male ballerinas, and it's a toss-up. It's between Ballerino and Baller. Well, you don't hear about ballerinos very often, right? You always hear about ballerinas, but there are dudes up there doing that nonsense as well. It seems like such a forced kind of dancing, right? It's so unnatural. Therefore, it's evil. Hi, Sean O'Neill. I think you're raising your hand. So, I've also been processing somewhat my interaction with that complete asswipe that I had to deal with briefly last night. God, that guy's infuriating. Do you think NI could give you placebo faux FI? Sort of. It's not exactly placebo or faux, but it's definitely the case that I have this experience of weeping at the perfect NI beauty of things, songs or media of various sorts. No, not Jeff Shaw. Jeff Shaw is Jeff Shaw. The guy I was dealing with last night was somebody I was supposed to debate, but it didn't meet my terms prior to the round starting, so we didn't end up debating. What I indicated to David Sanderson was, this is what you need to do to have a debate. You need to have a resolution. Somebody needs to be aft, somebody needs to be neg, and here's what that means. That's all it's all you need is a bare minimum. You don't need any more than that. But he didn't take me seriously, or he didn't listen to what mattered most. I said, yeah, it needs to be structured, And so we try to come up with a structure without a resolution. You debate a resolution. You don't debate another person. Two people debate a resolution. It's a statement that one of them affirms and the other one negates. Ballerinas are allowed to pull off certain moves that ballerinos can't for specific reasons. And see, that's the only way to make sure that good argumentation is rewarded and bad argumentation is punished. Yes, I'll debate anyone. According to my terms, it has to be a real debate. That is, that needs to be a resolution. Somebody needs to be affirming and somebody needs to be negating. And there has to be structure of some kind. Ideally, it should begin with a speech, naturally. It's silly not to begin with a speech. Like, this guy's wanting to start with questions, right? Why are we debating if we don't know that we're in disagreement already? And what we're in disagreement about? You know? So, I mean, I'm not. You gotta understand something, Winston's mom. Debate is not inherently a fun thing for me. Like, certainly arguing with amateurs is not. You know, I don't mind debates like the one I had with that white nationalist guy. You know, what's his name? I forget what his name is, but I'm happy to debate anybody, but it needs to be a debate about something. I don't want to debate a person. I'm debating a resolution. So if in fact that guy, I will, but it's going to have to be a real debate. What I won't do is discuss things with anybody. No, I'm certainly not somebody who's determined to bait me and make me angry. I'm not going to discuss things. Like, the problem with that guy is he won't be pinned down on anything. He won't acknowledge anything. He doesn't understand the idea that you have to make points and you have to be married to those points. You know, you have to be stuck with them. There's something called severance. I'm not trying to move from debating. What I'm saying is David Sanderson and this other guy don't get it at all. Neither of them know anything. To the extent they want to include me in their debate discussions at all, it should start with this. Can you teach us something first so we know something before we start talking about this? But they know so little, they don't know nothing. And so even though I told David Sanderson very clearly, most important thing is we have to have a resolution, he came up with a structure that ignored what I was saying in general. It started with questioning, right? If he thought about it, if we have a resolution and you have an app that is affirming it, then obviously they're going to make the first speech. Otherwise, you're just asking them questions about what they're going to say in their speech. Now, of course, you don't have a resolution and you're trying to figure out something you disagree about so that you can argue about it, then great, start with questions. But that's not a debate. You know, and then it's like the amount of energy this guy puts into statements like I embarrassed myself and, you know, that I'm scared, I'm a coward, and all this other personal attack shit. They're totally unjustified by the evidence, of course. The reality is that fucker, he asked the question, are you live streaming this right now? Assuming the answer was yes, and he was going to try to hammer me on that, meaning something about me and my motivations in person and stuff like that. And then when I said, actually, no, I'm not, because I didn't get to say why, because he just jumped right on it and accused me of being a coward and all this other shit. And I'm just like, okay, dude, no, this is not debate. You know, this is what I knew you were going to do again. This is why I insist that. I mean, that's the truth, Sean O'Neill. Sean O'Neill says, I saw a vid where you recall fondly losing a debate to some very bright sixth graders. Absolutely. You know, any of my students who are fairly developed would destroy Matt Alcutt in any actual debate. But he doesn't get that, right? He doesn't get how little he understands and knows. He doesn't get how weak he fundamentally is. And so he wants to come attack me as though we're equals or something. And it's incredibly annoying to see somebody who knows so little presume they know so much and do things so wrong. It makes me so angry that I just can't tolerate it. I heard TI wasn't good enough, email Anthrax. Third Clip TI is why get a wide variation on it as a skills test. What you get uniformity about in it is that it's a selfish application of the value of fairness for everybody who's third slot TI. But what you don't get are consistently strong or weak TI answers. You know, the fact is some INFJs are smarter in TI terms than others. And like my friend Corey, I never got a whole hell of a lot of good TI from him, but he definitely cared about fairness when it applied to him. Rachel, not really great on the TI, you know, pretty weak on the TI stuff compared to that girl, for example. But they're both INFJs because ultimately, like third slot FE, most ENTPs have much worse FE than I do. Much worse. As evidenced by this Matt Alcutt guy. His FE is terrible. And it's all assaultive FE, you know. He's almost impossible to find likable. I can be found likable depending on the mood in which you catch me, you know, depending on how pedantic I'm being and how much of an asshole I'm being and stuff. I've got some self-awareness regarding that, and I've got objective self-criticism. So when you have somebody who won't answer a question and won't acknowledge when they're wrong about anything, no matter how minor the point, and who just wants to be contrarian about everything, they're not honest with themselves, you know? They're being dishonest with themselves. Everybody loses some points. Everybody's wrong about some things. Me too. And that's why there's plenty of examples you'll find of me acknowledging when I'm wrong about something. I don't need to win every debate. I don't care. I know for a fact that when I start talking about like high school students, especially, that I cannot beat my high school students in debates, generally speaking, because I don't have the kind of round mechanics they have. Their round mechanics are much more polished than mine. What does that mean? It means they'll cover everything on the flow better than I will. They're not going to drop anything. They're going to use their time more wisely to make sure they handle all the mechanics of debate more successfully than I would. So I'm totally understand the fact that, you know, when David Dosh was competing or David Dosh's sister was competing, they would whoop my ass just on mechanics. I mean, I might make it close because I'm still smarter, by which I mean wiser. I mean, I understand more arguments and understand which ones are correct better. But that's not ultimately what wins a good competition round as much as understanding all the tactical and strategic implications of the situation better, you know? Well, I really think that um, I really think that blind spot knowledge functions are the same as any other kind of blind spot. Like, I'm sure whatever your blind spot is, you probably feel like it's a good blind spot to have because that stuff's stupid anyway. You know? It's kind of like the who are you talking about, email anthrax? Rachel? You thought Rachel's TI was better than yours, but her FE was very bad? Or are you talking about Soul? I don't think that girl's FE was very bad. It was very understated. It was very understated. I wouldn't call it very bad. Gen X feels an ISTP. He agrees that girl's not an ISTP. Some people disagree with me. ISTP is not a bad mistyping. It's the best mistyping of her, for sure, because same quadra, same absolute values. You could make the argument for ISTP, but it is a mistyping. She is an INFJ. Human condition is constantly seeking the next thing. I learn to love and it feels good, but then I pretty much immediately want to feel it again, and suffering will continue until I do. Thanks, other self. I knew somebody would Google it. I prefer Ballerino, but that's fine. The thing is, we are maybe constantly seeking the next thing, but it depends on. That's true in certain contexts and not others. That's an SI polar thing to say. For people who have SI someplace in the polar, there are some aspects of their life where they want to return to that which is familiar, most of all. So it's not the case that it's the human condition to constantly seek out the next thing. It is the case that it's your condition to constantly seek out the next thing, maybe. Satisfaction is fleeting is true. I'm sorry to hear that your grandmother died, Lauren McGinley. That's very sad. Ballaroo is a good name as well for ballerina, male ballerina. There's the prima ballerina and the primo ballerino. Indeed. So yeah, it's Sleepy Week, and what happens in Sleepy Week? Well, it's not exactly Sleepy Week anymore. I've slept my full fill of sleeps, which is to say, last night I wasn't even that tired when I went to bed, but I took a couple of chlortrantons, which made me sleepy, and half Clompen, and I slept well all night. So that was good. But now I've got some energy, but not really enthusiasm. I'm supposed to work today. I'm supposed to do pre-work, which I hate doing pre-work. Although it's not the worst thing in the world. It's like, I could even do a very boring live stream when I do it. A good live stream. Prepping the new debate topic. It would just be me silently working on prepping the new debate topic. Utter self, I think people do naturally go through the speed cycle, even if they don't do any speed. That certainly ENTPs, we have these stretches of inspiration where we're handling the handle, and then we have stretches of dinspiration where we just want to nest up and soak in NI or SI stuff. So it's like, Delilah, my daughter, who's an ESTP, was telling me yesterday how it's hard for her to get herself to start new things, that she really always finds herself just sort of rewatching old episodes of Bones, which is something we watched together when she was a kid. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that was indicative of absolute value fifth slot SI, whereas I'm always seeking out NI in my media. Eric, what's a controversial opinion of mine? Well, probably the one that surprises people the most, and also incites the most pushback from intelligent people, is that I dispute the notion that evolution explains where species came from. So you might say I don't believe in evolution, and people find that a controversial position. I've got a lot of surprising positions that people haven't heard before, which is not quite the same as controversial. Like my explanation of the abortion debate is one that always catches people by surprise, because everybody's supposed to be strongly agenda based about everything, but I'm not. I'm argumentation based. So I simply say, here are all the arguments. Now, I do have positions on things. I'm not saying I don't, but like abortion is not something I cared about. I just don't. To be honest, I just don't care about it at all. So it's like it's easy for me with abortion to say, well, here's my position based on all the argumentation, but I'd rather just not even tell you what my position is because I don't care about it. Here's all the arguments. Which of these possible things do you want? You can't have both, and you can't pick some from this bag and some from that bag. You have to accept this block of arguments or this block of arguments. And in the status quo, we're not operating as though either block of arguments is prime. So that's the problem. Bones is also full of the kind of FE I'd expect to be satisfying for third, especially in the ESTP. It's satisfying for third and ENTP too. I used to like the show a lot. You're exactly right. It's that kind of candy-like FE that third slot enjoys. But I gotta say, it got a little too candy-ish for me after a while. I got sick of it. A little bit of Monica over here, a little bit of Jessica over there. Is that a Pitbull song? No, what's that other guy's name? Lou Vega. Thank you. A little bit of Monica over here, a little bit of Jessica over there. Yeah, Mambo number 5. It's a good song. I like it. Are you listening to that song right now, Tiny Man 66? There's a Disney version of it. That's interesting. Another controversial position of mine is that there's nothing unhealthy about McDonald's. People really like, what? You just booping information like that. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like McDonald's is overrated. That's your critique of it? It's funny. I don't think of McDonald's as being particularly high rated. It's not like everyone's always singing the praises of McDonald's. Well, my point is there's nothing less healthy about a McDonald's hamburgers and fries and meal than if you made it at home, for example. Gen X Heel, bang bang, right on the nose there. The McDouble is the most nutrition for the value you can find, probably contextually. Yeah, unless you want to go out and hunt yourself a whole animal, but even then, the amount of work you put into yeah, it is. Um, I mean, I eat it all the time. Rachel and I had it yesterday. We had maybe it was the day before, two McDoubles each. This was the day before. Yesterday we had steaks, barbecued steaks. And that's the sort of meal we eat. We don't really have a lot of side dishes. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Nothing I can tell. What I would also point out is they're one of the most well tested foods in history. People eat there all the time. It doesn't make them sick. So there's obviously nothing like rancid about it or unfit to consume about it. People say, well, there's a lot of preservatives. Well, there's no reason to believe that preservatives are bad for you. In fact, there's plenty of reason to believe that they're good for you. They actually preserve things. For example, people now apparently, I've read, maybe this is an urban legend. I don't know. I heard at some point and believed, although now I realize I never really checked it out, but that dead bodies decay more slowly now than they used to because of people eating a lot of preservatives. Well, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm not saying it's preserving my body while I'm alive, but maybe it's more likely to do that than to not preserve it, right? So why do people think preservatives are bad? Where did that come from? I mean, salt's a preservative. Spices are preservatives. Yes, they were much better when we had trans fats. That's something that makes me really mad when they got rid of trans fats. Why? I liked them. Yeah, now the problem with McDonald's fries is a lot of times they taste like fish because they fry the fish in there too. Depends on the McDonald's you go to, though. Some of them have a separate fryer, I think, or maybe. Um, Look, I mean, the one thing I will say about the human physiology and diet that is true is that people have an odd relationship with sugar. The body can only process so much of it. You can eat too much of it. Um, well, I mean, the thing is, if you want to be biodegradable yourself, and I agree with that, then all you have to do is not be buried in a casket. Unfortunately, there are all these laws that preclude people from being buried naturally. I mean, it is true that you can do different things with diet to your body. You know, if you eat a lot of candy, you're more likely to get cavities. You're more likely to get. Um, I agree, horse mumbler, but I have gone to so many different places where I taste the fries and I'm just like, fuck, they taste like fish. I hate that. Are cardboard caskets a thing? I don't know. I think that the point is that when they pass these laws and stuff, they want to make sure that all the dead bodies are accounted for. So they don't come across some bone someplace and go, is this guy murdered or what? And really it was a burial, and so they wanted to sort of to organize that shit, I guess, at some point. But the thing is, we've not adapted to the exponentially increased population in ways that maybe we should have. I mean, it's like in India, they used to have this thing where they put dead bodies in the river and just float them down the river, right? Well, that's a terrible idea unless you have a very small population of people, because you're ignoring everybody downriver, right? Who's going to have this succession of dead bodies floating past them, and and rotting and becoming rancid, making the water bad, and it's like it's a terrible idea, It's talk about not giving a fuck about people downstream. You just float dead bodies past them all day long. Well, yeah, well, that's the old way as well, Gen X. The old way, the Catholic perception is that when Jesus comes back and everybody is raised from the dead, that their literal bodies are raised from the dead, and I guess the skin and the muscles and stuff are put back on. So you have to keep the body so that it yeah, well, I mean, what can I sky burial is no good either. Bird population will spike up. Is there a notion for sky burial? I've never even heard of sky burial before. There may be an emerging market for funeral boats and burying and burning Germanic style. That'd be cool. I like the idea of sky burial, but see, sky burial should be they put your body in outer space in a low orbit so that it re-enters the atmosphere and burns up. Volcano burial would be fine. If I were a primitive culture living near a volcano, that would probably be what I would go for. Let's bury our dead by dumping them in the volcano. Give my body to the birds, the practice of sky burial. What, do you just float them up on balloons and then the birds go and peck at them? Is that the idea? A practice of sky burial. So it's not really in the sky. It's just putting them up in a high place where the birds eat your body. When the Zoroastrians would leave the body on top of a tower for up to a year, and when the sun had bleached the bones, they were collected and dissolved in lime in an ossuary pit at the center of the tower, then filtered by charcoal and flushed away by rainwater. The Zoroastrians' reasons for this were that they considered dead bodies unclean and impure, as well as liable to be rife with demons. To bury a body is to risk defiling the water supply by putrefaction, and cremating one could contaminate the air. That's smart. That's like That's like early smartness, right? That's so smart. Who knew that there were Zoroastrians as recently as 40 years ago? It was actually only around 40 years ago that a similar death ritual was performed by the Zoroastrians. I had no idea that there were really Zoroastrians. What? It's a multifaceted faith centered on a dualistic cosmology of good and evil and an eschatology predicting the ultimate conquest of evil with theological elements of henotheism, monotheism, and polytheism. What's henotheism? I've never even heard of that before. Oh, I see. Adherence to one god out of several, especially by a family, tribe, or other group. Huh. There are no impartial records from Zarathustra's time. The earliest surviving references to Zarathustra from non-Iranians seem to be those of Greek writers. Zarathustra and his first followers were Iranians that lived between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, 1200 to 600 BC. The time of the Iranian people's migration to Iran can be mainly estimated through Assyrian records. Also, Herodotus recalled one of the Mede tribes to be called the Majoi, better known as the Magi's, a tribe known to have included many priests who served both Medes and Persians. By the time of the Median Empire, Zoroastrianism is known to have been well established in both the Pars region as well as the eastern regions. Hmm. Although there are no inscriptions left from the time of Cyrus about his religion, the fire altars found at Pasargadae, as well as the fact that he called his daughter Atasa, the name of the queen of Vishtapa, Zoroaster's royal patron, suggests he may have been Zoroastrian. However, it is clear by the time of Darius the Great, the empire was definitely Zoroastrian. Darius declares in one of his inscriptions, a great god is Ahura Mazda, who created this earth, who created yonder sky, who created man, who created happiness for man, who made Darius king over many, one lord over many. Hmm. So what are the tenets of Zoroastrianism? I don't Sacred fires. I still don't really understand how they do their religion though. So there are 25,271 Zoroastrians in Iran currently. A 2020 survey said half of Iranians have indicated they've lost their religious faith. That's interesting. Um, a Netherlands-based Gaman group for analyzing and measuring attitudes in Iran, using online polling to provide greater anonymity for respondents, surveyed 50,000 Iranians and found 7.7 identified as Zoroastrians. 7.7%. Huh. Interesting. Important Iranian Zoroastrians in the 20th century. Jamshid Bahman Jamshidian was a prominent Zoroastrian figure in Iran who introduced the idea of modern banking in Iran, as well as being the first representative of the Zoroastrian community in the Iranian parliament. At the height of his operation, he had 150 Zoroastrian employees in his Tehran financial firm. Zoroastrian neighborhoods were formed in the area surrounding the residence of Jamshid. The nucleus of this community was formed by his employees and their families, joined later by other Zoroastrians. By the age of 35, Jamshid had several trade chambers in the central market known as the Grand Bazaar of Tehran. This was a place where normally non-Muslims had difficult times establishing businesses due to heightened levels of prejudice. It was deeply rooted in centuries of discrimination and unjust behavior. Jamshid managed to build respect by establishing relationships with key political figures of his time. These included two kings of Iran and other political figures, such as the first Iranian prime minister. Very interesting. I didn't even know that Zoroastrianism was a real ongoing religion. I thought it had left the world thousands of years ago. The first Zoroastrian governor recently just got elected. Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard of Herodotus. Proto-Zoroastrian at most. The Zoroastrianism which existed at that time was not what Zoroastrianism came to be later on during the Sassanian period. Okay, well, that's good to know. Octavia Silva wants to know what aspects of Kings of Leon's music make them so terrible. Well, I will say that, first of all, it's music by committee. The singer's god awful. Yeah, there's that, Corbin Dwyer, but it's also music by committee. There's no vision. It's somebody comes up with a lick and someone goes, yeah, that's kind of a cool lick, and then they start jamming out over it, and then the singer starts singing some stuff, and they go, okay, well, what should we move to now? And someone else comes with another lick. You can tell how they write their music. It's terrible. Your sex is on fire is virgin talk. Apparently chicks go crazy. You know, it's like my ex-girlfriend Kimberly. She thought that was just like, you know, you see her going, yeah, to the serious, earnest, operatic bullshit. I don't even want to vomit. I want to just take the CD out of the car and throw it out the window. Soft soul kind of stuff it's like, yeah, it's horrible. Am I jealous of Kings of Leon's success as a band? No, I don't think I'm jealous of them. I mean, there are. I used to be more prone to that stuff than I am now. I feel grateful that I have the level of success that I have, that I can go online and people come and chat with me, and yeah, I guess I respect the process. That they did certain things in the process better than I did, and that's why they're more successful. If you engage in the process the way I do, you're not engaging in a way that's going to link very clearly to success. There's no plan of action. There's no ordinality to it. Thanks, Steely Bob. International superstar is, I don't know how to express it, wildly inflating. With wanton abandon, my level of, of notoriety. Wildly inflating with wanton abandon. I didn't see your last video email then, Turks. I'm sorry. I will. I will. I will check it out. Emailed. Is that the name of your channel?
Now, in order to start this video, I guess I need to ask the question, what is a cognitive function? So, what is a cognitive function? A cognitive function is the brain's way of perceiving and expressing the outside world. Now, in order to understand the outside world, you have to first understand what a function stack is. And a function stack is built up of 8 cognitive functions. And these cognitive functions are preferenced in a particular order.
I think the inclusion of graphics like that is a good idea. Horseman War, let's talk about the FE impact of, you didn't know that? I gotta tell you, you didn't know that is one of the least FE effective strategies you can use. It's only going to make people think you're a douche. It's pretty obvious I was poorly educated. Well, I was very poorly educated. We were all very poorly educated because none of us had our educations individualized to our natures. But I've done a pretty good job of educating myself. Well, that's FE fourth for you, Horseman War. I ain't hating on you. I'm just giving you a little tip, a little life hack. Everybody loves a life hack. Well, that's assuming they don't have any SI, Sean. For SI people, they can go back and retrace their mental steps. What was I thinking when I did that? Like, what were you thinking when you did that is a question you're likely to ask a child. And when I ask a question, I expect to actually get an answer. Because if you ask me that question, I can go back and tell you what I was thinking. Why is what you were thinking, basically. What was your justification? What was your reasoning? Well, because it's relevant as to whether or not the behavior is, how bad the behavior is. So, you know, well, I mean, not everybody's that way, Sean. That would probably be your response to it, that this is an unfair question to ask me to revisit the past and give justifications as a means of learning about which justifications are effective and not. That would probably be an unreasonable thing for a parent to demand of you. On the other hand, it's a perfectly reasonable thing to demand of me, and good parenting of me would involve them saying, what were you thinking when you did that, and why do you do that? Because if it's perfectly, and with my deliberative tool function, hey, you're supposed to be deliberating before you take action, Eric. You know? Yeah, well, curiosity is a reason. What was your thinking about it? Well, I was curious. That's a reason. That's recounting what your thinking was. That's true, horse mumbler. That's true. You use passive voice. Of course, the irony is, compared to most people, I'm very well educated. At least very broadly educated. One thing I do tend to ditch, probably more than most people because I'm a debate coach, is names. I don't care what the person's name is who made whatever argument, because it's just a citation. It's just like Smith 2014. That's all the person's name is to me. So, you know, I remember a few of the big ones that get cited all the time, but I can remember arguments that philosophers have made that I read but I have no idea what the philosopher's name is. Children are little liars. They can be. They can be. I think, you know, children need to learn the consequences and harms of lying. Certainly, when I was a child, I lied much more sort of reflexively than I do now. Guys, did you know that every rose has its thorn? It's true. If you think there are roses out there with no thorns, you are lying to yourself. That's fine, horse mumbler. Right. It also, I guess, to a certain extent, depends on the context in which you are raised. Like, I raised Delilah in an environment where whether or not conclusion X was reached, was affirmed or negated, had to do with whether or not she made the right arguments. You know, it was always like, well, but that's not a good enough reason. You have to give me better reasons than that. No, horse mumbler, no. Every rose has its thorn. Bon Jovi has taught us that we are not to question. We are not to question the wisdom of Bon Jovi. Every rose has its thorn. Now, I mean poison, okay? Listen, poison said it. I believe it. That settles it. Okay? My bad, not Bon Jovi. Poison. Poison said it. I believe it. That settles it. That's my motto in life. What else did Poison say? Every rose has its thorn is an axiom if you're in the poison religion. It's dogmatic truth. You don't question it. You don't challenge it. You don't point. Those are no longer called roses. They're called blasphemers. Okay? That's what they're called. There are roses, and then there are blasphemers. Things that try to be roses but don't have a thorn. Bette Midler. Thank you for bringing up Bette Midler again, Winston's mom. I've been on a bit of a Bette Midler kick right now. And the basic gist of it is this. I imagine Bette Midler when she entered into show business, right? And I imagine there being some sort of like New York theater district, small theater, and there's like an agent or a producer in there. And then Bette Midler walks in the room, and she's just like, I'm here, I'm Bette Midler. And then the agent's like, lady, you've got it. You've got what we're looking for. You've got that magic smile. Like that, you know. Bette Midler is, to me, everything awesome and hilarious about show business. You know, she's just like, meow. She began in the gay bathhouses as the act before the, well, you know. So anyway, I like Bette Midler a lot. I don't know, there's something about I think that's true of T.I. Dom and T.I. Tool, less so of T.I. Third. I think it's very unlikely to occur in T.I. 5 or 6 because they're too much involved in the knowing aspect of things, so they're less likely to correct themselves. Well, it's true that T.I. Doms correct everyone else. What I'm saying is, in casual conversation about random things, like for example, detailing your SI, T.I. Doms and T.I. Tool will correct themselves about SI things. Last Wednesday, shit like that, right? They probably won't correct themselves or be resistant to correcting themselves about TI things. I mean, I think an INFJ is more likely to correct themselves on SI things than an ISFJ is. You know? Have I ever known an FI know-it-all? I mean, I consider ENFPs to be FI know-it-alls. INFJs don't do anything that isn't calculated. Hot take. I agree with that. Or occasionally they do, but then they regret it. Every time Rachel's 7 gets ahead of her INFJ, she regrets it. Winston's mom asks, have you ever tried to order pizzas for a group of feelers who refuse to tell you what they want on their pizza? How annoying is that? That's a bunch of FE feelers. It's got to be. Okay, well, that's an hour. I'm tired now again already. I got a bunch of stuff I'm supposed to do today. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you experienced some glee this morning, Marshmallow Boy. Enjoy your glee. Glee is always a good thing. It's better than getting fleas. All right, then. Later days and better lays. Don't forget to stack some hay.